Hey there, I'm Steve, and welcome to Jamsin Entertainment. And welcome to the conversation. Just before we get started, there are many ways you can help. You can like and subscribe so you never miss a conversation. But most importantly, please share this video. Get the word out there as a community. We can talk about all things that we love. Today on Throwback Thursday, we're looking at Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan! I'm sorry, I couldn't help myself. In addition to the cast of the first film and the original series, you also have Bibi Besh, sorry for mispronouncing that, playing Carol Marcus, Merritt Buttrick playing David Marcus, Paul Winfield as Captain Terrell, Kirstie Alley as Savick, and Ricardo Montalban and his chest, it's a joke my brother came up with, playing Khan Noonien Singh. Now, there's quite a bit to talk about with this movie. Number one, this is considered to be the fans' favorite Star Trek movie. Personally, this is my second favorite. My favorite is The Undiscovered Country, the sixth movie in the franchise. This is a fan favorite because it brings back a villain that was in one episode of the classic series, Space Seed. And again, I gotta give credit to my brother. I made a meme, but only because my brother Rich pointed this out. How did Khan survive Space Seed? Khan is such a classic villain. He is among the best villains to ever grace the screen, both on the small screen and the big screen. He and a crew of, I'm probably gonna get this wrong, but I think there's about 300 or so or less that survived their exile from the eugenics war from the fictional future of the latter half of the 20th century and the beginning of the 21st century. Him and his crew were genetically altered to be Ubermen. They have superior strength and intellect. In Khan's time, he was out for world domination, but he was stopped, put into cryo-freeze, and launched into space, presumably for all time. In the episode The Space Seed, the Enterprise comes across it and wakes Khan up. They slowly but surely learn about Khan's bloodlust and quest for power. They ultimately defeat Khan, and him and his crew become exiled again. And with that, a crew member of the Enterprise, Lieutenant Marla McGivers. She is a 20th century, 21st century history buff on the crew of the Enterprise. And at first she's skeptical about Khan, but she ultimately falls in love with him because of his manipulation, and the rest of the episode ensues. I won't go into spoilers more than that. The opening of this movie starts with Captain Terrell and Lieutenant Chekhov, who is the first officer on a ship called the Reliant. They are working with a science crew remotely on a project called Genesis, pioneered by Dr. Carol and David Marcus. They are searching for a lifeless planet in order to test the final stages of the Genesis project, which is described as life from lifelessness. The Reliant is monitoring a planet called Ceti Alpha 6 for such testing, but they find a life signature on there. And so Captain Terrell and Lieutenant Chekhov go down to investigate, and they find these shipping containers. Now here is an issue. I'm going to keep bringing my brother up every now and then. Every time we watch this movie, he likes to remind me that Chekhov should have no knowledge of Khan because he is not in the episode of Space Seed. And that's just one of the flaws in the movie, because at first Chekhov notices a buckle that says Botany Bay. That was the ship that Khan and his crew were exiled on twice. And before the movie progresses past that, you can simply believe that Chekhov knows about Khan and the story because he was told about it by crew members that witnessed it. But later, Khan recognizes Chekhov. I don't know why they decided to write that in there, but it is what it is. It doesn't have many flaws, but that is a major one in continuity anyway. So the two Starfleet officers still believe that this is Ceti Alpha 6. Khan points out to them this is Ceti Alpha 5, the planet he was stranded on. Ceti Alpha 6 exploded, moved the planet they're on out of orbit, and it became a barren wasteland, save for one indigenous species, with offsprings that inserted into the ear will wrap around the cerebral cortex and making subjects extremely susceptible to suggestion. And thus starts Khan's quest for vengeance. Now, Kirk is still Admiral in this. From the first movie to this one, he didn't keep the command of the Enterprise. It's become a training ship for cadets. Is like their final lessons before they graduate Starfleet. It was only supposed to be a 3-week voyage. But Khan's trickery is at work, and so they get roped into investigating what's going on with Project Genesis. Now it gets a little tricky, because I gave a lot of information, but going forward, I don't want to give more information. Okay, this is the best Star Trek film. I know I said Undiscovered Country is my favorite, but really this is the best. 2 reasons. Undiscovered Country uses this story as a blueprint for their story. I'll explain that when I get to Undiscovered Country. And J.J. Abrams thought he could remake it in Into Darkness. I've already done a review of Star Trek the movie and Into Darkness as a prep work review before Star Trek Beyond came out. I will link it below if you're interested in watching it, but right here and now I'm going to reverse my thoughts on Into Darkness, because I say it's an okay reboot then. It is an atrocity. Because in that movie, they try to do Space Seed and Wrath of Khan in one movie, and it's just not possible. You need an entire episode in order to make an entire movie. It just doesn't work cramming them in together. And J.J. Abrams relies heavily on nostalgia goggles. When I first saw Into Darkness, I really did like it because it is well acted. But without the context there, without the history between Khan and Kirk, it's not nearly as strong as a movie. Trying to make that rivalry between them in one movie, it just can't be done. And the fact that there is role reversal in that movie is, my opinion, J.J. Abrams should never touch an established franchise ever again. Just make your own stuff. You're good at creating your own stuff and screwing that up. Plus, that movie does not nearly have as good as dialogue as this movie. This is probably one of the best movies of all time. It's definitely within my top 10. The dialogue in this is so amazing. The acting in this is next tier. Why? Because William Shatner and Ricardo Montalban are never in the same room together. They have to completely react to each other's dialogue without the other person present. If I was never told they weren't in the same room together to even give themselves reference to help them act off each other, I would completely believe that, like, Ricardo was on set when Shatner was acting his parts on the Enterprise, and vice versa for when Ricardo was on the Reliance. It is Shakespearean, the revenge that Khan wants on Kirk. Also, it has the best space battle ever. Yes, I am saying that. There are plenty of good space battles out there. Some of them have really good visuals, but nothing will beat this one. Star Trek started it all with space battles. Okay, started it all doing well with space battles because Roddenberry has a naval background. That's what this is, partially. Star Trek is Navy in space, but it's also a Western in space. It's 2 ideas married beautifully together. Spoiler alert. You've been warned. Because part of the climax of this movie is the Enterprise going into a nebula and Kirk taunting Khan to follow him in. Because both ships are damaged, but Khan's ship is slightly better off than the Enterprise. But Kirk knows going into the nebula, it'll be a more even match. And so it becomes a submarine battle. And Kirk uses his experience over Khan's intellect. I'll leave it there because it's just brilliant how this is played out. Every time I watch this, I'm still on the edge of my seat because it's so suspenseful and so well done. It's just absolutely amazing. And the music is taken to a whole new level. It just really grabs you and puts you in with everyone. This movie is extremely close to perfect. Like I said, the only flaw is the continuity and storytelling at the beginning. And this movie really starts the continual storyline for the original cast, with the exception of the 5th one. I haven't seen that one nearly as often as I've seen the others, so what stays consistent in that one is the overall friendship friendship and companionship that Spock, McCoy, and Kirk have. It's the first movie and the fifth movie that it's clearly the same universe, clearly the same timeline, but they're removed from the overarching story that happens from 2 through 6. Despite that, the first 6 movies are done beautifully telling one story. Those are my thoughts on Star Trek Wrath of Khan. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and live your imagination.